It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode, International Fight Week episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Just coming off the heels of a UFC event, lackluster main event. We'll dive into it just a little bit, but Khalil Roundtree is good. Looking ahead to the juggernaut that is UFC 317 this coming week. Jon Jones retired, and a couple little other things made waves. But to help break it all down, I got the man. His name is on the marquee. Follow him on X, JohnMorgan_MMA. What's up, pal?
Man, listen, if you've been listening to us for any degree of time whatsoever, you know when it's pay-per-view fight week, we get fired up, right? But there's pay-per-views, and then there's International Fight Week. I mean, I'm excited to another level. Then it's Eric McMahon in Las Vegas week as well. So that takes it up to another level. So it's going. And then you got news with Jon Jones. It's crazy as well. So, I mean, dude, I'm fired up. It's you know, it felt like a little bit earlier in the year. There were some weeks. It was a little bit slow, maybe. What's going on? Man, we are in full swing right now. That is for sure.
Do we even want to get into UFC this past weekend, or just kind of like,
I mean, look. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to talk about, to be honest with you. I will say I do want to give a big shout-out to Nazim Sadikov and Nicholas Mota, two CFFC vets who I kind of hate when CFFC vets get paired against each other because I kind of want to see them go undefeated in their UFC runs, you know what I mean? But for two guys to come together and put on a fight like that, my goodness, that was an amazing fight. And I love it when even somebody like Nicholas Mota in a losing effort, but an incredible effort, can walk away with an extra $100,000. So I do want to give a shout out to them. You're right. I don't think it's a card that necessarily needs big breakdown. A little bit lackluster with all the decisions and a performance that was maybe a little bit flat from Khalil Roundtree. I think he said, you know, he was playing it safe and he's like, look, you're tough to read. I had to play it safe. He did. He got a win. That matters. He's going to have a big fight next. But yeah, it's not something you want to go round by round, breaking it all down.
All right, so do we start with 317 or do we start with Jon Jones?
I mean, I got to start with Jon Jones, right? I mean, UFC 317 is massive, but how do you not start with Jon Jones, even though Dana White just kind of threw it out there as an afterthought? Like,
That's why I wanted to start like this whole thing. So if we're watching the post-fight presser, right? If you're watching that and a reporter asks, you put this 2-week timeline up for Jon Jones. Are you still going to hold to that 2-week timeline of stripping him of the title or announcing the fight? And he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I got a call yesterday, and Jon Jones is retired. So Tom Aspinall is the champ."
It's hilarious, right? It's like he sat down. He's like, "Gosh, there was something I was going to tell you guys." And I can't remember exactly what. Let me pull out my notebook. I must have written it down here somewhere. I was going to tell you. Oh, that's right. The greatest of all time has retired, and we have a new UFC heavyweight champion. Like, what happens if that reporter doesn't ask that question? I mean, I'm sure Dana White has been in enough press conferences. He knew somebody was going to ask him, right? Everybody knows what the headlines are, what's going to get the clicks, what the storylines are that we need to follow. I'm sure he sat down and assumed somebody was going to ask him. But what if they didn't? Was he just going to leave Baku and never tell us, oh, by the way, sorry, Tom Aspinall is the reigning heavyweight champion? Unbelievable the way it came out.
Well, and then let's you know, and then he elaborates a little further, but not in that press conference.
Yeah.
I think he goes on a boxing match the next night or something of that, right?
Right.
And he's asked about it, and then he elaborates and he says, "Hey, this fight was done. It was already done. It was booked. We were agreed upon it. Everything was done. And then Jon Jones called us." Now, let's look back at what came out at the same time, right? Jon Jones in some legal trouble again.
Yeah.
Which details are murky at best on what happened here. But I don't know. You want to fill in the gaps? Because, I mean, I'm only reading statements from his attorney who are saying this is a secondhand account of something that somebody said one time, and then the police, the Albuquerque police, never followed up on it. Fill in the gaps for us.
Yeah, this is unfortunate because you're right. There's not a lot of information out there other than these kind of legal statements and public records, as is understandable, right? Ongoing legal proceedings. Not a lot of people are going to be talking about it, but essentially, there was a woman that was found in a car, half dressed, we'll say, and clearly under the influence. And she said that she had been in an accident and that Jon Jones fled the scene of the crime. They put her in touch on a cell phone with what everybody was believed to be Jon Jones, but I guess it turns out they never fully identified that it was clearly Jon Jones. I think they were working under the assumption that it was. She said it was, and I guess, do I know if they recognize the voice? I'm not sure, but they didn't clarify that it was Jon Jones. And on that call, there are some threats made or some inferences of threats that could potentially befall these police officers, et cetera. So that happens. This happens back in February, actually. The charges are just getting pressed now. In that time, and you and I have talked about it, I had been told that all things were a go, that, look, this fight was going to happen at Madison Square Garden. And Dana White has since come out and said, yes, that's exactly what we were planning on. He had agreed. We had the terms. We were good to go. I think they were just waiting to announce the exact date at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, you want to go on sale with your big main event, et cetera, et cetera. And yet over the weekend, we bring up this call that's kind of comical in the way it was presented, but he says, listen, I'm retiring, and it comes out at this press conference in Baku, and when Dana White says it, and then Jon Jones goes to social media the following day as well and says, yes, I've given it some consideration, et cetera, I'm retired. And then immediately these at the time when Dana White makes a statement, none of these legal proceedings have seen the light of day. Nobody knows about them. So everybody's left kind of scratching their heads a little bit. A lot of people angry, saying, hey, why were you just leading us down this road all along? You knew you weren't going to fight Tom Aspinall. Why now? And I mean, within an hour or two after the announcement is when we see news of the legal proceedings, leading a lot of people to say, hey, how much did these newest legal charges, to which I should say his lawyer has come out and said, Jon Jones was not even at the scene of this accident. You guys assume that was Jon Jones. It was not Jon Jones. I will prove that my client is innocent and wasn't even at the scene of that. But, man, it seems awfully strange that these legal proceedings came up just as a sheer coincidence on the same day that Jon Jones decides to call it quits. And
apparently cell phone records are now being subpoenaed.
Correct. They're trying to make sure, was that who was talking and what was going on and all those things. So, yes, this is an ongoing investigation. This has not been solved just yet. Again, Jon Jones is proclaiming his innocence, but and look, this is coming from a Jon Jones homer, a Jon Jones fan. I'll sit in front and argue in front of anybody that wants to. He's the greatest of all time. I believe it in my core that he is the greatest of all time because I saw firsthand what he did to champions along the way when he was in his early 20s. So this is coming from somebody that is on Jon Jones' side. He's been in a lot of incidents over the years. There's a lot of people that, if this comes up and it's like, man, did you hear what happened to Sage Northcutt? You'd be like, nah, come on, man. That didn't happen. Get out of here. But when all this comes out and it's like, oh, but Jon says he wasn't there. I mean, the average person is going to sit back and be like, what? Come on. Are you serious? So, facts still to be determined, but that's where we stand at this particular moment.
Like, listen, I think you can have two different simultaneous conversations happening at the same time, right? So, one, we can all acknowledge that he's the greatest of all time, and then two, maybe acknowledge that it doesn't make the best decisions, right? Yes. I don't think you conflate. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I watched an at-lengthy monologue given by what's his name? Aaron Bronstetter.
Canadian journalist.
Watch this?
No, I have not seen it yet.
Okay. So he goes on there and he says, hey, here are my thoughts. And I love following his stuff. Like, I think
Aaron Bronstetter is sharp, man. He is a very, very good journalist, very accurate, very knowledgeable. If you're not following him and you're a fan of MMA, you absolutely should be.
He gives the best post-fight recaps of press conferences real time. So I don't have to watch 40 minutes of it. I can read 5 minutes of his.
Yep.
So he gives this monologue, essentially, of him in front of a camera saying, here are my thoughts. And now this is on the heels of all the legal stuff breaking as well. And he says, what is Jon Jones's legacy? Is he the greatest of all time? Or was he the best fighter of all time? And he's making this argument that because he was maybe morally absent at times in judgment, that he's not the greatest of all time, but we can agree that he was the best fighter. To which, like me, my head explodes when I started hearing about that. I'm like, we can't take something away from somebody because we don't like them personally. Like, I'll never agree with something like that. Jon Jones is the best, the greatest, the GOAT, the whatever you want. He's at the tip of the pyramid. And if you want to justify decisions along the way outside of fighting, have that conversation. Now, that does not take away from what he did in the sport. He is hands down the greatest of all time, point blank, period, end of story.
Yeah, and again, I'll qualify that I haven't seen it, but just based on what you just said there. Now, I will say, and again, I just said what a great journalist Aaron Bronsteter is, and I'll stand by that. He's one of the absolute best in the game.
100%, I agree.
He is from Canada. There will probably be a little bit of Canadian bias with Georges St-Pierre, all right? And if
Georges St-Pierre is the greatest because he was a good person, essentially.
Now, see, I understand that argument, especially coming from a Canadian. There's going to be a little bit of bias, but take the Canadian aside. Let me stand here as just John Morgan, who has been a journalist for a long time and been in this game. Yes, when you think back about the people that they were, you definitely think of the professionalism of Georges St-Pierre and the way he carried himself. You know, he was the guy that started wearing the suits to every press conference and conducting himself in such a professional manner, and the way he carried himself. And, you know, if you want your son looking up to somebody to follow and to be like, you say, hey, look at that man, Georges St-Pierre. If you want your daughter to be looking at the kind of man you want her to see her with someday, it's Georges St-Pierre. So I agree with all that. And so that's a subtle little fun play on words of what does the GOAT mean. But, and again, all praise to Aaron Bronsteter, but I just disagree. The way the greatest of all time means the greatest in that particular skill or area. It's not about, hey, how did you balance what you did inside your preferred occupation with the human being you were outside it. That's an entirely different conversation. You know what I mean? When you talk about the GOAT, you're talking about who's the best to ever do it, and that is Jon Jones. I like what you said, morally absent. You know what I mean? Look, Jon Jones has had a weird life, right? And I always said this in the beginning, right? Like when you're like 23 years old, rich, and your job is beating up the baddest dudes on the planet and you're doing it with ease, it's probably hard for you to be a little bit down to earth and humble as well. You know what I mean? You got your brothers playing in the NFL. You're all around millions of dollars. Everywhere you walk in, you're in your early 20s, and everywhere you walk in, the door is open to you. The bottle service is comp for you. The girls are wanting to hang out with you. You're the man to everybody in there. It's probably a little bit tough to be humble along the way as well. But he's had multiple instances along the way, and multiple instances where you're just like, bro, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had this conversation over the years. Like, you live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Can't you just have a full-time driver on hand that just drives you everywhere? Like, his entire job is to be 24/7 available to you, or hell, maybe you have 2 drivers on staff and one is available 12 hours a day and the other's available the other 12 to be on call, to do whatever you want to do with the money that you've earned and the right that you've had, but just not to get out there in public driving under the influence. And again, we don't know if he was there or not, but these incidents have happened along the way. Don't be driving under the influence. Don't be carrying firearms when you know that's illegal, especially if you're under the influence of something. He's just made, several questionable decisions on the way. So if you want to, as a fan, a journalist, or whatever, tell me, John, I am just not a fan of Jon Jones. I don't like the decision he's made. I don't like the way he conducted himself. And because of that, I'm not a fan. So be it. I wholeheartedly understand that. But to sit back and try to rewrite history of what he accomplished as a fighter, you can't do it, man. The legacy is there. And will his legacy be one of the most beloved athletes of all time? No, it won't. But you better respect what he accomplished as a fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's sad to a degree that when you speak of Jon Jones, you are going to speak of this in regards to his career. And that's unfortunate because he is the greatest, and he is the best. Like they go hand in hand. Like if we're going to split hairs over the meaning of the words to try and elevate or decrease your stature, one, I don't think it's appropriate. And again, Aaron, I follow you, man. You're the man. I disagree. Like,
yeah,
it is what it is. Everybody's going to say, 20-something and 0, multiple division world champion. The one loss really shouldn't, that rule has been overturned. And in reality, like, I can make the argument that that's not even a 12-6 elbow.
Agreed.
Because there's art coming onto it. I always say this in my rules meetings. Like, I don't understand how you can even 12-6 and mount.
Right.
You have to almost offset to 12-6. So there's some art. So Mazzagatti, like, I'm not hammering you on this, but I just don't even agree.
And I love Steve Mazzagatti. I still see him. He's a timekeeper now, and he's at the apex all the time. He's still around the game. But yeah, I disagreed with that call at the time, and it's so wild at the time because I remember how upset Dana White was at the time about, like, man, you cost this kid his undefeated record. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, that's true, but, like, what are the odds this dude never loses again? This is mixed martial arts. Like, why are we so worried about this? Like, I get it, but why are we so worried? And sure enough, 15 years later, you know what I mean? He still hasn't lost. So it's like, damn, you go back. It's like, that was a way bigger thing than I even recognized at the time.
Yeah, let's get into 317 then, man, because I am locked. I am loaded. I am ready to go. Ilia Topuria, Charles Oliveira is going to headline with the co-main event of Pantoja and Cara France as well. But you also got Brandon Royval, Joshua Van, Dariush, and Money Moicano. I mean, I'm excited for this. Not only that I'm going to be in the building for it, but I'm excited as a pure fan to see this. And yes, International Fight Week, I guess to a degree, isn't looked at as the same because I think that, you know, the common fans aren't looking at all these athletes the way we are. We see the cream rising to the top. And this is a hell of a card, but you know, the UFC has kind of convoluted itself with the amount of shows, so it doesn't take the billing it does. But this is a hell of a card. Ilia Topuria, what if he goes in there and starches Oliveira like he starched Volk, like he starched Holloway, like he starched Bryce Mitchell, like he starched, just keep naming it and naming it. But then on the other side, you got this massive 155er Charles Oliveira, who outside of one fight in his last, 6 years, has looked phenomenal. Even in his loss versus who did he lose to? 3 fights ago. Gosh, I cannot believe it's.
Now you're gonna cause me to pull it up. Oh, of course, you lost Arman Tsarukyan. He still looked phenomenal in that fight. And a lot of people were saying Arman Tsarukyan is the one who's finally going to take out Islam. And Oliveira was coming from behind in that fight. This fight is so damn good and so damn entertaining, and so it piques my interest on so many levels. Ilia Topuria's boxing is phenomenal. His jiu-jitsu is unworldly. But the size difference here, I think, is going to be big. I think the grappling, Ilia Topuria, this may be the only guy he doesn't have a grappling edge against that he'll ever face. And then is he going to get close enough to be able to box him up? This is a hell of a fight. And Charles Oliveira is that good. And we know Ilia Topuria is that good. I love this fight a lot, man. You know, obviously, it's a little bit weird when everybody starts changing divisions right now. I mean, it's kind of weird, the belt situation right now. Like, right? Like, we just talked about it. You got Tom Aspinall now. He's the undisputed. And you got, Islam moving up to challenge at 70. And you got Ilia and Charles fighting for a belt that's vacated, all that. But take all that away. Just look at the fight itself. I mean, these are two of the absolute best in the game right now. They're both on the pound-for-pound rankings list. So, according to the rankings, they're two of the top 15 in the entire company right now across all divisions. And you laid it out perfectly, right? We got a chance here in Las Vegas to see Ilia Topuria late last week. Last Friday, the UFC hosted an open workout and media scrum session at the Performance Institute. And so I got to go see up close and not only have a conversation with Ilia Topuria, but then he also did a bit more of an extensive open workout than we expected him to do. We were honestly told, hey, I'll probably go in there and just, kind of hit pads a little bit, get you guys a little bit of B-roll. But he actually went through some grappling rounds. He went through some striking rounds. He did quite a bit. And I can tell you right now, the first thing that you see is Ilia Topuria at 55 versus Ilia Topuria at 45. Just relaxed, happy. Like, you can tell, he's admitted it, right? Part of the reason of moving weight classes was the weight cut wasn't fun for him anymore, and it was getting really tough for him, right? So you start to worry about that a little bit, but man, he just seems so much more mentally present. and in just a better place, right? And and he said it. He's like, dude, it's not just the week of the weight cut; it's the entire process leading up to it. But then, watching him get in there, and again, he's just doing pad work, and he's doing grappling rounds with a guy that's there to be a partner. It's not a competition, but just seeing his physical presence, like he's a lightweight. It's not a featherweight that is oh my gosh, how undersized is he going to be? He's a lightweight, and I think that power that he has is going to translate, right? Because anytime somebody moves up in weight class, that's your biggest question, especially as they're a striker. It's like, well, have they been knocking out these smaller guys? What happens when they move up a division? It's there. But you said it, right? It's really interesting with Ilia Topuria because before he came to the UFC, I wouldn't say he was known as more of a grappler, but he was finishing people with submissions, and that's where he kind of looked the most damaging. And then, he's turned into this incredible knockout artist during his UFC run. But I would seem to suggest that, like, against Charles Oliveira, who's kind of like a one of one in the grappling department, you would say, hey, I want to stay away. Now, again, he's not going to give away his game plan, but I did ask him, I was like, hey, not to talk too much about strategy, but I mean, can we safely assume that you believe your edge is on the feet and you kind of believe his edge is on the ground? And he's like, no, I'm a better grappler than Charles Oliveira as well. And so I feel comfortable there. I don't think you want to feel comfortable there. Charles Oliveira is dangerous. And so, excuse me, when you talk about that range and that height that he has, that translates on the ground too. I know sometimes we joke about, hey, reach doesn't mean anything on the ground, but in Charles Oliveira's case, it does, right? Because he's got those long limbs and he uses them all to attack you. So stylistically, I love this fight. Could Ilia touch Charles Oliveira's chin early and hurt him? Hell yeah, he could. But could Charles Oliveira do what he does and find a moment in a scramble and latch on to something in a way that only he does? 100%, man. So I see danger on both sides of this, and it's an exciting matchup.
I don't think Charles Oliveira still gets the credit he deserves. I think he is haunted by the demons of his past early in his UFC career. I think that he is haunted by being dropped by Dustin Poirier, being dropped by Justin Gaethje, being dropped by Islam Makhachev. I think that haunts his reputation. But what happened when he got dropped in all three of those scenarios? One, he didn't get finished by them by being dropped.
Yep.
And in two of those scenarios, Gaethje and Holloway, or Gaethje and Poirier, he got back up. He started boxing the hell out of those guys afterwards and submitted both of them. And he dropped Gaethje. So let's put this in proper context. And the proper context is, one, he's durable as hell. Two, he doesn't get in my opinion, still does not get the recognition he deserves. But here's what worries me in this fight. If he has been dropped by Gaethje, if he has been dropped by Islam, and if he has been dropped by Poirier, are those guys as crystal strikers as Ilia Topuria? And I'm going to say they're not.
Yeah.
Now, are they more powerful, equal as powerful, or less powerful? I don't know at 55. But if he's got that technique and that boom, that one-hitter quitter power, Oliveira he has to be dialed in from the second. And I think that's what's happened in a few of those fights. He wasn't dialed in right away. And it took him a minute to get dialed in. He can't do that here.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, man. I think that's an excellent assessment. And, I was kind of looking at it because you think back, I mean, if you're new to the sport and then you only know the great Charles Oliveira, but if you're old school, you remember, there was that stretch between like 2015, 2017 where he had several losses and you kind of wondered.
21 though.
Yeah, exactly. He was a kid and he was like insisting that he should compete at featherweight when we were all like, dude, you should really be at lightweight. But he's 13-2 in his last 15 fights in the UFC, and those losses are, as you said, a split decision to Arman Tsarukyan, and of course, then the loss to Islam Makhachev as well. So you're talking about the champ and number one. Now we know the champ's going to 70, but essentially the champ and the number one contender right now. So those are not bad losses. But you're 100% right. If Ilia Topuria's power does translate as much as we think it will, because his technique is incredible, it is going to be problematic for Oliveira. But Oliveira does have that thing, and I've seen people discuss it, and it's so true, where it's almost like he gets a standing 8 count because you knock him down and you don't want to jump on top of him because you're like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Now, Ilia seems to think that, hey, if I knock him down, I will jump into his guard or I will jump on top and look to finish him. And I think, and look, his grappling is incredible. I just, it only takes a second. And that's the thing I always praise about Charles Oliveira is it's not like he has one go-to submission where you're like, hey, man, just make sure if you're in that one position, you watch out for that one thing. And as soon as you feel it, you move, right? Because he's got every submission in the tank, which is incredible because he can chain it all together. And as soon as you escape one submission, you're on to something else. So, but if Ilia can absolutely crack and put his lights out, you know what I mean? Then you don't have to worry about that. So I love this fight, man. I honestly believe, I think the odds are, pretty heavily in favor of Ilia Topuria. And I get it. I mean, I do get it. Like, there's a lot of respect. He's undefeated. He's coming off wins over some of the greatest of all time in the featherweight division. But this is up a weight class. This is against Charles Oliveira. This is against a guy that has competed at the highest level. You're headlining International Fight Week. Charles Oliveira has been in the spotlight forever and ever and ever and ever. You know what I mean? There's so many extras. So I really, really do love this fight. And I think it's going to be a fun way to cap off International Fight Week.
I mean, we know the greatness of Ilia Topuria. The meteoric rise that this guy has had over the last 2.5 years is honestly, maybe outside of Jon Jones back in the days, unprecedented.
Yes.
But there's this guy who's been here for damn near 10 years and now is fighting at arguably his greatest stretch for sure, but just what he did in his last fight against now Michael Chandler. You can argue about what kind of Michael Chandler we got. I am not sleeping on Oliveira here.
No.
Oliveira, like, I am so excited for this fight more than a lot that I've seen in a very, very, very long time, because I think you have this mythical creature in Ilia Topuria. And in my opinion, this guy who is so wildly underrated, but should be a mythical creature. And let's just see what happens. That's where I come at this from.
It's funny because you especially
480.
I told you, man. That to me seems a little bit crazy, man. I get it. Like Ilia Topuria, right? Nobody, perhaps more than you, has been singing the praises of this man, not only for his talents, but for his swag as well. You know, the way he conducts himself, the way he carries himself. He's got that gangster vibe to him. I mean, he's awesome. And here he is in just his 9th fight in the UFC, headlining International Fight Week, looking for his 2nd championship belt. I mean, amazing what this man has done. As you said, the rise is unbelievable. Charles Oliveira, by the way, you disrespected him. You said he's been in the UFC for 10 years. He's been in the UFC for 15 years. The man was in the UFC 5 years before Ilia Topuria had his professional debut. You know what I mean? Like, it's unbelievable how long Charles Oliveira has been at the highest level of the sport. Pressure means nothing to him. Like, he lives in this. You know what I mean? This is what he's done. The spotlights won't matter. The nerves won't be there. And again, you can clip him, but if you don't put his lights out, he might just snatch up your ankle or your arm or your neck or anything that he sees there. He's got it off. So I understand why Ilia Topuria is the favorite, despite the fact that he's moving up in weight, despite the fact that this is not his weight class. I get it. And if Ilia Topuria goes out there and cracks Charles Oliveira, and by the way, I love what he said, and I don't disagree with this. Ilia was like, I don't think, and I asked him kind of about it, and he said last week, he's like, I don't think this fight goes past the first round. He's like, I'm not. He's like, the thing about fighting Charles Oliveira is I don't have to try to go find him. Like, he's coming at me, and he'll be right there. And so I agree, like, this could be a chaotic opening to this fight, and I agree with that assessment. But if Ilia catches Charles on the chin in the opening round and puts him out cold, will I sit there and be like, I never saw that coming? Amazing. Of course, I'll be like, wow, it'll be, incredible. It'll be a highlight. But vice versa. If Charles Oliveira snatches up in a transition or, gets cracked and catches on and submits Ilia Topuria, am I going to sit back and be like, that's the biggest upset we've ever seen in the history of the UFC? Like, absolutely not. And so I love fights like that.
Beating anybody will never be the big or that big of a
hell no. That's why I said, like, these odds surprise me a little bit. Like, I get it, man. Everybody is on the Topuria bandwagon, and deservedly so. It's cool to see him, getting the respect so early. But I'm looking at it, and when it opened up, it was like minus 295 Ilia Topuria, and even that seems a little bit strong to me. But it's gotten bet. It was bet down almost immediately, and I get it. I think people are looking at Charles Oliveira's tendency to get cracked, and he does. He does get hit in fights. And Ilia Topuria can throw hands. So I get it, but I don't know, man. It just seems like that's leaving a lot out of the equation that could also happen. So, if I'm forced to make a pick, yeah, I probably would pick Ilia Topuria, to be honest with you. But at those odds, I'm a little bit surprised. If I'm forced to make a bet, I think I like having Charles Oliveira against anybody with that kind of plus money on my side,
Well, I mean, I think if you're forced to make a pick, you pick the guy who's knocked out a bunch of legends in succession, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, Ilia Topuria. But that's why I just keep on saying with this confirms what I think people's biases about Charles Oliveira are, is he's wildly undervalued, in my opinion. Like, I just think the guy is so damn good. Now, we got the co-main event, Pantoja and Kara France. It could be a fun fight, or it could be another Pantoja fight. You know what I mean?
So here's what's funny is so I was actually looking at the odds this morning, and so Alexndre Pantoja is a favorite, as you would expect him, but I saw him as closer to like minus 265. I almost thought, if it was me personally, if I was making a personal assessment, I'd almost flip the odds on these two fights. Like I do feel like Pantoja should be a big favorite over Kara France. Now, Kara France literally does have that puncher chance. He's beaten him before. You know what I mean? Kara France has that ability. He's got power in his hands. He is dangerous. And so, as you said, it could be a very, very good fight. If he could turn this thing into a firefight, it could be very, very exciting. Kara France, it has the ability to do that, or it could be a dominant Pantoja win because Pantoja is just that damn good.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, the outside of the main event, the fight I am looking forward to the most, Beneil Dariush and your boy, Beneil Moicano. I don't know how this, like, I can, predict to a level of certainty of, I think this fight will play out this way. I think the fight could play out this. These are the two scenarios. If A, then B, if C, then D. We are very good at that.
Yep.
I look at this Dariush. One, we haven't seen him for a while. Two, Beneil Moicano, he was on this wrecking train ride, and then he took a last-minute fight against Islam and got destroyed. But these are two dudes that are so good that I think Dariush is going to have the striking advantage to a degree. I think Beneil Moicano on the ground has the advantage to a degree, and they're not wide-ranging. Do I think Dariush could get Moicano to the ground? I do. I don't think it's the best path to victory. But I think Moicano can get Dariush to the ground. I think that's going to be extremely tough for him to do, right? And that's why I don't know, like, if A, then B. If Moicano gets Dariush to the ground, can Dariush get up? I think so. If Dariush gets Moicano to the ground, can he get up? I think so. Do I think one's exponentially better of a striker than the other? I don't know. I think Moicano maybe have a little bit better top pressure than Dariush. From bottom, not sure. This is as almost even as a fight as I've seen in a long time.
I agree. It's a fight that was supposed to happen before, and then we got, incredibly excited about it and thought it was going to be a great fight when it was scheduled previously. Of course, that's when, it didn't come together, and now we're getting to see it. And, ultimately that's when Renato went out there and got that paycheck. He got that money, didn't get that victory, took the chance though. When they call your number, and I love his attitude about it. You take that opportunity, right? And I love the fact, I know Renato was so disappointed afterwards, right? Because it was like, man, he'd worked his whole life and it didn't come in the perfect scenario, but he said it, and I love it. It's like, you train your whole life. You got to be able to ready to fight anybody at any time. And so it didn't go his way. But then you got Beneil Dariush as well, who, like you said, we haven't seen him in a while. He was on a hell of a run. We're talking about title shots for him. And then he had those two setbacks, and, he is older. He's still 36. The gray hairs.
He's at least 49.
The gray hairs have not helped him. I think it like in your head, he's got to be like, what, 45 now? You're like, no, he's only 36. He's had gray hairs forever. It doesn't do him any favors. But what's been happening in those 2 years away? You know what I mean? I guess about a year and a half at this point, not really a full 2 years. But what kind of improvements have been made? Again, he was ready to fight before earlier this year. He had that training camp in there. So yeah, a lot of questions, but Styley, I agree with you. Like, I don't see any one particular situation where I look at it and just be like, well, if it goes here, like this is the only result that could possibly happen. You know what I mean? Like I think everything is available here in this matchup. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I love this fight as well. And look, it's a big one for both these guys too, right? These are guys that have been hanging around the division for a long time. They're both 36 actually. And so, both of them know, I think, they both kind of openly talked about it. They know they can't fight forever. Not that, retirement is imminently looming, but you take a step back here and, it's a long walk back up the ladder. And then you start talking about, is it worth it anymore? Do I want to keep putting myself through these training camps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big fight in terms of, kind of which direction both their careers go. So I love this fight as well. I will say it might not be my favorite even though I love me some Money Moicano, even though I love me some Beneil Dariush. By the way, if you've never met or talked to Beneil Dariush, I mean, I feel like we say this about a lot of mixed martial artists, but like, he's like one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. Like Beneil Dariush is like next level nice. It's not the fight that it was supposed to be, but I love it. Brandon Royval and Joshua Van
on quick turnaround.
On a quick turnaround. Yeah, I mean this rise that Joshua Van has had is unbelievable. I mean, from not even in the UFC not all that long ago to now. And look, he's ranked number 11, but he said it. Look, I took this fight. If I beat number 1, am I not number 1 at that point? So I think I should fight for a title next. But it's amazing how fast the rise has been. If you paid attention to his social media outside of it, like he just bought his mom a house. I mean, like how cool is that? You know what I mean? To be like, I was nobody. Now I'm in the UFC, and oh, by the way, I'm taking my earnings. And I'm taking care of my mom who took care of me. I mean, that's amazing to see that. But then I also love me some Raw Dog Royval as well, man. I love his attitude. I love his walkout song. I love his fighting style. And this to me looks like fireworks because Joshua Van's hands, this dude's boxing is on another level, man. He is so fun to watch. But Royval is so dangerous as a striker as well, and he's tough to read, and he's wily, and he's aggressive. And yeah, man, this is a fantastic fight that came together on short notice. When Manel Kopp had to bow out, unfortunately, which I was looking forward to that fight. That was going to be a good fight, but I think the UFC found an awesome replacement. And as you said, on very short notice, man. I mean, Joshua Van was just victorious 3 weeks ago, and now he's here on the main card of International Fight Week. Pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So Power Slap Friday night. And then UFC Saturday night. What else is going on Fight Week?
So if you want to start at the beginning of the week, we'll start with Wednesday. UFC BJJ 1 is on Wednesday night. That'll be at the UFC Apex. Man,
regulated by the Athletic Commission.
So it's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I was watching the weigh-ins and it looked like UFC staff that was handling the weigh-ins. I don't think it is. I know in the like with us with CFFC in when we do like Atlantic City or Philadelphia previously for our grappling events, the athletic commissions aren't involved in that. So with grappling events, they don't regulate it. So I'll be interested to see. The weigh-ins take place Tuesday morning. I'll be interested to see. I was watching. If you haven't seen the reality show, they basically did an Ultimate Fighter style reality show for UFC BJJ. It's on Fight Pass. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. It's just kind of an introduction to these athletes. If you're not watching competitive grappling, you don't know who all these people are, you can see it, and they kind of introduce you to everybody. It's a good series. It's short watches. The episodes are only like 30 minutes, so it's like really quick watches if you want to throw on the background. But I like what they're doing. So, we talked before about how you and I both kind of like the enclosure of like the Karate Combat Grappling Series. Of course, the Craig Jones Invitational, they licensed that as well. The UFC did something similar. Now, I'm sure there's probably some discussions. They'll tell you it's not similar in the least. They came up with their own thing. But it's like an octagon with those kind of raised surfaces as well. So essentially,
it's a lot tighter too.
It's a lot tighter, exactly. And so it kind of creates a bowl. To be honest, I'm really anxious to see it, in action live. I've been watching the reality series. I'm just about caught up on it. I'll be there on Wednesday night. But I like it because you don't get the resets, and I think that is a big part of people watching competitive grappling that they don't like. There's two things of it. Number one is that, you get to the side and you're rolling and you have a near submission and the referee is like, stop. And they bring you back to the center and they try to reset it. It's just weird. It stops the flow of everything. And the other thing is, and you'll see it in high-level competitions, is that guys won't take chances unless they're up against the edge because they know if I take a chance here and it goes wrong, I can just roll off and I can get a reset. Whereas if I'm in the center, I'm stuck if I make a mistake. And so a lot of times, not a lot of action unfolds in the center. So this stops that. I really, really like it. So I'm anxious to see it unfold on Wednesday night. So you can watch that on Wednesday night. Thursday night is actually the Hall of Fame induction. So that's what's going on there. Always a good watch, a big class this year as well. I don't know if that's going to be a thing moving forward where they're putting more, because it used to be like kind of one per category, but there's more this year. You got Mark Kerr and Vitor Belfort that are both going in the Pioneer area. The Smashing Machine. And it's been announced that Mark Kerr is going to be inducted by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Who, of course, the Rock is actually playing Mark Kerr in the upcoming biopic that's coming out on the remake of The Smashing Machine, essentially, which is all you old school guys will remember the documentary, man. A very, very powerful documentary. Kind of hard to watch at times. You know what I mean? Hard to watch at times. But that's being remade. So those are yours. Modern area, Robbie Lawler. Who's not a fan of Robbie Lawler? If you don't like Robbie Lawler, you just don't like MMA. What are you doing? You're watching the wrong sports. Amanda Nunes going in as well. Fight wing, Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum, one of the greatest fights of all times. Like, I'll never forget, I was fortunate enough to be in the building for that one. Incredible, incredible fight. And that moment of Israel Adesanya before the 5th round, you know, mouthing to himself, "I'm ready to die." Like, oh, dude, that'll give you goosebumps. Like, I'm when people say that, like, you got to go in there ready to die. And he said it to himself, "I'm ready to die. Let's go." 5th round. Unbelievable. And then on top of that, the contributor wing, Craig Piligian. If you don't know Craig Piligian, he's a longtime producer of The Ultimate Fighter. So he was very, very influential in obviously he oversaw the whole Ultimate Fighter. And that was, widely credited with the revolution of where UFC is today. And then the Forrest Griffin Community Award recipient, Charles Oliveira. He's doing some social projects down in Brazil. Obviously, he came from the favelas. I mean, what an example to come from absolutely nothing and to have the riches and the respect that he does, and he's trying to give that back to other people as well. And his story, if you don't know Charles Oliveira's story, it's pretty wild as well. Like, very sickly as a young child. Like, definitely wasn't tabbed to be some high level athlete. Whether he'll be there or not to receive it, I mean, the award, he could probably come in and head out, but he'll also be trying to make weights. I don't know if he'll be there in person or not to accept his award, or somebody will accept it on his behalf. But a very, very, very good class. So that's Thursday night, and then of course, you said it, Friday night is Power Slap, and then Saturday's event. And if you happen to be in Las Vegas, UFC X is kind of the conference that they have. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on, all kind of activations with athletes there. Yeah, exactly. Like a big fan fest, right? Is what they do. They do it at the conference center, and it's huge, man. I know, like I said, a lot of photographs, a lot of autographs. But then they do cool stuff. Like, I know, like, I was talking to one of the cutmen last night. The cutmen all volunteer a couple hours of their time to, like, wrap people's hands just so they can come in. You can get a hand wrap, and then they'll cut it off so you can take it home as a souvenir. They've got, this is new. I was talking about this morning. This is wild. They're doing an activation with Meta where it's a Meta AI Ultimate Barbershop. So they've got a barbershop set up, and then they can bring you in, and using Meta's AI, you can find a legendary fighter's haircut, see what it looks like on you, and decide, I want to go with that. And then you can sit down, and the barber will shape you up like whatever athlete you chose along the way. So a little bit weird, a little bit different, but they try new things.
I'm not getting the chuck.
That'd be great, man. Come in and get the Chuck Liddell right before you do Power Slap on Friday night, man. How great would that?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
That's a haircut there, right? Like, you literally just, no human being on earth can rock the Chuck Liddell without basically being called like a poser, right? Like, come on, man. That's Chuck's look. What are you doing, man?
Hey, before we get out of here, 2 quick little things. Number one, you see Pat Miletich got arrested again, and he's denied bail this time. So he's in jail still. This is his 3rd or 4th DUI. And the prior ones, driving on a suspended license. And man, from the guy, it's hard to see, because he was the premier gym. He was the premier trainer. He had the premier super team. And, 10, 15 years later, it's just kind of sad to see. And obviously he's fighting these demons, but, alcohol is a problem.
It's tough, man, because you're right. I saw it, and I didn't have a chance to read the details yet, and I almost just didn't even want to click on it because it did make me sad, right? I mean, a legendary fighter who, as you said, man, became a legendary trainer, Miletich Fighting Systems. I mean, the squad that they had together there, the stories of those training rooms are legendary, because that was like the early days, right? Before you knew, like, oh, you don't have to spar every day. Like you should do some, you should do some drills every now and then. I mean, those guys went at it, and they all had each other's backs, and they were legendary.
Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes, Jens Pulver, Robbie Lawler,
unbelievable.
Pat Miletich
himself. It was just a stacked room, man. And so it's sad, and it is sad to see. And I think anytime you see somebody, I mean, listen, nobody should drive under the influence, right? I mean, it's, many people have done it at one point or another in their life, but it's dangerous, man. It's not only the danger that it presents you, but it's the danger that you present for everybody else out on the road, man. You have the opportunity to hurt somebody that is innocent and nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? And so it's a terrible thing. But you would hope that if it happens to you once, like it's like a huge eye opener of like, oh my gosh, I've taken some chances and I didn't think about the severity of this. And it's not a light punishment, right? I mean, they try to send a message to you that like, dude, this is serious. Don't do this. And then to do it multiple times. And, it just shows you're battling
addiction. Doing a 30-day jail sentence before last time, but it's just unfortunate. It's something in the topic. We need to bring it up.
It's sad. I mean, it shows he's battling addiction, man. Hopefully he can get some help, man. I mean, obviously, like you said, if you're making a decision to do that multiple times, like you said, you're battling demons, man, and it's a shame because he is a legend.
Dana White also talked about, kind of confirmed that it looks like they're going to have multiple streaming partners when the new TV deal comes up. But then also something really fun, and I think, listen, we Nostradamus this shit. Right?
As we've been known to do sometimes.
If we go back maybe 2 months ago, we started talking about when the TV deal stream, can they take the TKO Endeavor thing and make it like a weekly episodic television out of it? Well, I don't know if they're getting there yet. But Dana White did confirm in an interview that, hey, we're going to be having a lot more Contender Series programming.
Double the events, he says. We're going to do 20 dates instead of 10. To be honest, it's tough, right? So as the general manager of CFFC, I know that's more people that might be taking off of our cards. Right? But that's it. You know what I mean? So like part of it, you're like, oh man, but these are more of our guys that we're building cards around. But what are we building the cards for? We're building the cards so that these people have opportunities to get the platforms like this. So I'm excited for it, man. I love it. Again, everybody loves the Contender Series, man. It's
and it goes both ways too. I mean, coming off the Contender Series, you don't got a contract. Now you get the CFFC platform to get your way back.
100%. So I dig it, man. I really do. As you said, we're still anxious to hear it. I saw the article where he said, maybe by September we'll have an announcement ready to go. But yeah, it's exactly what we talked about. Number one, I kind of always thought they were going to split things up a little bit. I'll be interested to see how they all play out. Also we didn't talk about it, but part of this week's, schedule as well is another Canelo versus Crawford press conference. That'll take place on Friday. Before Power Slap, but Dana White will be there. Of course, you saw him on stage in New York. That's the boxing event you talked about, where he is promoting this Canelo versus Crawford match on Netflix, which is huge, man. I mean, the fact that you can deliver a live sporting event all over the world, via Netflix is pretty incredible. So, I think the UFC might end up on Netflix as well. Obviously, you've already got WWE there. They're putting boxing on there. Like, why would they not want to continue to be in business with the UFC as well? Now, Netflix executive has come out and said, listen, we're not really interested in having the full library of stuff, but we're interested in having, the biggest, again, Canelo Crawford, like landmark events. So maybe they only take like a couple pay-per-views a year or whatever, or maybe it's like special 4-fight lineups or something. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. But that would be and I think we talked about as well. There's still value.
On Netflix, and now I got to get it back.
You got to get it back. If you didn't have Netflix, you got to get it back. How do you not have Netflix, man? My wife and kids.
Listen, I got Disney, I got Hulu, I've got ESPN, I've got Peacock. I've got this shit adds up, man. It adds up.
I haven't added all my services together to see what I'm paying, but it's way more than I was before I cut the cord. You know what I mean? Like before we had all these, so I got everything. But yeah, I think so That's why, again, this is just pure speculation, but it's been my speculation from the start.
Oh yeah, HBO Max. I got that one too.
Gotta have HBO Max. Gotta have that. I got that one too. In fact, my wife and kid just added Showtime back because they wanted to watch Dexter, the new series or whatever. I don't think there's a streaming service that exists that I don't have. I got them all. Like I literally have everything. But I'll tell you what, I think from the beginning, my speculation, again, it wasn't, it was informed speculation, but again, all options were on the table. But my thought process from the beginning was Netflix and ESPN, right? Because Netflix, you have the ability to deliver all over the world, and they are a powerhouse in terms of streaming, and they're trying to do these big events, and they have a great budget, and they have, an insane reach and all those things. So Netflix for the premium. And I still see value to the ESPN brand. I know you'll see a lot of reports out there that, ESPN subscribership is shrinking and it doesn't have the reach it once was and all that. And those are all true. Those
to be taken seriously, you need to be associated with ESPN. It is what it is.
It's that simple, right? It's that simple. So that I think that's what we'll see is probably the majority of fight nights and stuff on ESPN and then kind of premier events on Netflix. Now, what does that mean for pay-per-view? I mean, does it mean that pay-per-view goes away? I have a hard time believing that. I mean, everybody thinks, everybody knows that the pay-per-view model is broken. It's piracy is just so like I said, I got a kid now that's 13. For the past several years, I've had to I'll see him bootlegging something. I'm like, bro, you got to stop. I'm like, but if an 11-year-old kid can figure out how to watch anything they want on the internet, what does that say for pay-per-view? So, will they totally go away from it? I don't know, because that's still revenue. Like, even if you're getting 100,000 views instead of 1 million, it's still 100,000 buys. It's still money. So will they go completely away from it? I don't know. We'll see.
How big these deals are, though, Holmes.
It does. 100%. If the money's there, they'll go away from it.
You're getting guaranteed. You know what a wise man once told me. He said, Eric, never pass up for show money for some more money. Then you'll end up with no money.
That's the truth, baby. That is 100% the truth, man. I agree with you. So we'll see where it ends up. What is the partner one? And I think in UFC, and I think that's one of the reasons people and Dana has talked about this along the way, is like the great thing about our product is you tell us what you want. You want 3 shows a week? We'll do 3 shows a week. You want 1 show a month? We'll do 1 show a month. Just tell us what you want. We have the ability to do it all. We've got the team to put it together. We got the athlete structure. You know what I mean? Like, we can do whatever they want. So it's going to be.
That's why we were going with the episode, like looking at the WWE model episodic approach. I think the Contender Series is a first step towards that. And not to mention, like, I absolutely adore and love the Contender Series brand. I love what it does.
And look, I've said it's terrible. I think it's like cruel, but I've always said, like, what about just like athletes that like it's their last fight on their contract or something, and it's like, hey, winner gets their deal renewed, loser
league town match.
I mean, it sounds so cold and ruthless, but like, can you imagine?
This is contract match.
Can you imagine? Like, okay, so like, all right, it's same setup. It's 4 fights or 5 fights on a Tuesday night. Everybody's on the last fight of their deal. The 5 winners get their deal automatically renewed. The 5 losers don't. You know what I mean? Like, again, it sounds horrible, and I'd hate to be those guys in the loser leaves town match, but there's ways to build back. But it's not like the UFC isn't cutting people all the time anyway. So at least make something tense out of it. And honestly, like, if you're on the last fight of your deal, like, at least you're given a chance to fight for your job. You know what I mean? Instead of just like, well, they just decide not to renew me. Like, no, I get proof. If I win this fight, they renew me. I'm 0-3. I lost 3 in a row. But I know if I win tonight, they have to renew my deal, because that's that's the stakes of this. Like, that's tension. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it sounds cruel, but I think it'd be kind of cool.
I work in live entertainment for a living. I love it. I love the emotional aspect of it. Well, hey, this was a fun episode. We got 317 just a few days away. Topuria, Oliveira, top of the card. Jon Jones calls it quits. I do believe for good this time. Did his legal problems impact his decision? To be determined. Is he the GOAT? Yes. That's all.
Are we going to have Frosty beverages in Las Vegas?
Yes. 100%.
I love it, man. It's going to be a great week.
Slap the shit out of each other and then go grab a beer and talk about it.
Come on, man. What else do you want to do on a Friday night in Las Vegas? And at the Fountain Blue, by the way. How gorgeous is the Fountain Blue, man? That property.
I walked into that being like, Man, my West Tennessee ass does not even belong in this place.
I'm telling you, man. It's nice. I tell anybody that comes to Las Vegas, like you might not be able to afford to stay there. You might not be able to afford to eat there. Maybe you can only afford to drink there, but at least walk through it, man. It's gorgeous. Like, it is nice. They built that property
listen, I am very fortunate in a lot of aspects in my life, right? Luckily, me and my family, we don't live paycheck to paycheck. We are a solid middle class. I walk into that place and I feel like the poorest guy. When I walk in, I was definitely the poorest guy in that place. Poorest person.
I 100% guarantee you are, unless I'm in there with you. You know what I mean? Then you're second. But but I love that place, man. We actually got to stay there very long. We've done a couple staycations. They actually do some deals for like locals, and where it's kind of a discounted rate and like no resort fees and that sort of thing. They'll do that during the summer. So I've had a chance to stay there a couple times with my family, and yeah, it's you feel it, man. It's so nice. Like, you feel like maybe you don't belong in there, but it's cool to be there because it's super nice. And I was actually just laughing. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. She had she stayed out the pool one day. I was working the day we stayed there. I was working. Her and my kid went to the pool. She had a pina colada and ordered chicken nuggets for my kid. And it was $80. That's how nice the place is. One drink and some chicken nuggets, $80. Like, it's not cheap there, but it's nice. And so to go hang out there will be fun on Friday night.
Really, like laced in gold.
It's it. We'll find some place a little bit more affordable afterwards to have a few cocktails. But there's some nice places right in the area. But anytime somebody comes to Vegas, I always go tell them to go check out Fountain Blue.
We're gonna walk across the street to that little pop-up shop.
That's where we'll be. That's where we'll be.
Well, anyways, with that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.